The distant crow of a rooster announced the beginning of a new day and the end of a watchful night. Tired eyes greet each other as the rising of the sun bring restful ease. Exhausted after a long night's sentinel, breakfast is skipped as the widow and young Perkins search the home's exterior, looking for any evidence of their unearthly intruder. The two gaze in silent awe at the sight of wood marred by jagged claws. The widow's rose bushes had been ripped from the earth roots and all. In the soft soil of the flower bed, the tracks of some unknown creature can be plainly seen. From their first view, it appears that the animal had circled the house several times, stopping at each window and then moving on. Only beneath the window of the widow's bedroom it was apparent that there it lingered, obviously having gained their scent. The rabid thing began pacing back and forth. At the foot of the window, among tiny fragments of shattered glass, small puddles of dried blood spoke well of the widow's aim. The bullet had indeed struck its mark. From the strides of the tracks, the stricken monster was in full flight. The wood of the white picket fence had been completely splintered, shattering at the section in which the wretched creature ran, escaping back in the direction from which it came. That being the dreadful Potter's Field. The distant clang of the school bell offers young Perkins little relief as the disconcerting thought of another encounter with Mr. Pickman overwhelms the young man with a sickening sense of nausea. The widow accompanies young Perkins to the crossroads where they then part, he taking the path to the schoolhouse, she taking the path leading to the church, as the reverberation of the bell calls the children to class. Young Perkins sees the usual group. The school bully arrogantly swaggers past, brushing roughly against young Perkins' shoulder, causing him to stumble forward. Leroy, the class clown, plays tag with Jojo and Booker, twin brothers, who laughingly rush by in an attempt to evade their pursuer's touch. A group of giggling girls skip by as usual. Trina and her sisters make mocking faces at the young man as they go by. But where is Kevin? Looking around, he can see no sign of Kevin. Young Perkins quickens his pace until he reaches the group of girls. They began to snicker, anticipating young Perkins' questions. His little sister Trina's is the first to speak. Kevin, he ain't coming to school today. He ain't feeling good. He ain't sick. He just scared of something. With those words, young Perkins' sense of unease builds. With a mocking sneer, she and her sisters continue in the direction of the schoolhouse. The shocking realization of being left alone, being stranded within the confines of the schoolhouse, instantly removes the strength from his legs. Young Perkins' legs feels like jelly as he reached the open door of the schoolhouse. Stopping, he exhales in exasperation to see the figure of Mr. Pickman. With his back turned, he writes mathematical problems on the chalkboard. Young Perkins eases by and takes his place behind the usual desk. The final child enters the room and takes a seat, whereupon Mr. Pickman turns to address the class. A wry smile slowly spreads across his face as he notices the absence of young Perkins' friend. Well now, good morning, children. How is everyone today? Beginning in a cheerful voice, Mr. Pickman questions young Perkins as to the absence of his young friend. Well, young man, what happened to your young friend? Why isn't he here today? With a sardonic smile, he further adds, playing hooky, is he? No, not that he wouldn't do that. No, Kevin is probably, yes, he's probably sick in bed. Is that it? Yes, of course it is. Your little friend, probably, yes, oh yes. I'm sure he's sick in bed. Well, I hope we'll have the pleasure of his company tomorrow. Perhaps I'll go and see him tonight. With those words, Mr. Pickman's gaze turns to ice. Yes, I think I'll pay your young friend a little visit tonight. I might even bring a friend of my own." Young Perkins gripped the edge of his desk, wallowing in the mire of fear, tightly holding on to what little courage his heart possesses. He wants to scream. He wants to run and warn Kevin, but he must remain there, seated at his desk, locked beneath the frigid eyes of that evil man. Young Perkins finds it almost impossible to concentrate on the math problem. With the passing of each hour, the tension builds. Will he be kept behind again today? Will he find himself this time alone in the darkness? Will the evil Mr. Pickman use the seclusion of the empty room to repeat yesterday's nightmare? Kevin's mother didn't own a gun. He never really cared for Trina and her brood. To him, Kevin's little sisters, well, they were all just a bunch of little tormenting brats. They made his life a torment. But even so, they didn't deserve to be ripped apart by some monstrous thing from the pit of hell. Or did they? Young Perkins muses. Maybe if it just got Trina. Would that be so bad? With her gone, those other little brats would probably straighten right up. No, that wouldn't be right. Besides, it would probably get his mother. No, Kevin wouldn't like that. But if whatever it was that stalked the widow's home last night would just take a little nip from Trina's backside, maybe it might do her a bit of good. Mr. Pickman's words repeat in young Perkins' mind. Maybe I'll bring a friend. Maybe I'll bring a friend. Maybe I'll bring a friend. Over and over those words punished the young man, lashing him again and again like the thorny barbs and branches of the potter's field. The hands of the clock seemed to crawl, to lag, making the young man feel that time itself has somehow ceased to exist. Was he trapped in a timeless dimension? The class was silent, save for the sounds of lead pencils scraping against sheets of paper, the children racking their brains to answer the equations presented before them. The silence is suddenly ripped by the school bully's terrified voice, crying, "Look, look!" All heads turned in the direction of the shouts. Standing in the seat of his chair, the bully points in the direction of the empty desk that Jonah once occupied. Eyes grew large at the shocking sight of muddy footprints entering the class through the open door. A deafening silence fills the room, as the only sound heard is the slow, steady, slosh, slosh, sloshing sound of someone walking. Some unseen entity has invited itself. Whatever it was, tread slowly, sluggishly, as if weighted down by water. Muddy tracks led right up to Jonah's desk. The children gasped in horror as the seat showed the imprints of a mud-soaked body. The bully, still standing atop of his chair, nervously called out, "Jonah? Jonah?" The hairs of all heeding the call to attention, as the sound of water-filled lungs began emitting deep, gurgling gasps, as if still submerged beneath Muskie's muddy waters. Young Perkins remained as motionless as his classmates finally managed to cast a brief glance at Mr. Pickman. The teacher's eyes, for the first time, reflecting a genuine, palpable fear. Mr. Pickman knew, the bully knew, young Perkins, as well as the entire class, all knew. The restless soul seated behind the desk was none other than that of Jonah. The hideous gurgling, accompanying the footsteps once more, begins its slow step, passing down the aisle and out of the open door, its sound continuing in the direction of the Muskie River. Pastor Jackson and the widow were already on their way to the schoolhouse to pick up young Perkins so that he could accompany them to town to purchase new window glass. The panic shouts emanating from within the schoolhouse caused the two to quicken their pace, cries of Jonah reverberating from within. Leroy, the class clown, shouts an enthusiastic, "I think I hear my mama calling." Thus the frightened youth quickly rises and rushes in the direction of the open door, only to collide with Pastor Jackson. The collision causes the smaller party to fall to the floor. The pastor and Miss Hazel giggle a bit, amused at the comedic sight of the class clown scrambling to rise. "Pastor Jackson?" the bully calls from the back of the room, still standing in the chair. With a voice impacted with fear, the affrighted bully declares, "Jonah was here," pointing to the empty mud-stained seat. "There, right there." The twins Jojo and Booker rush forward to help the class clown to his feet. All the children affirm the bully's incredible statement. Kevin's little sister, Trina, rushes to the pastor and begins pointing toward the muddy footprints which remain visible. "Look." Trina still pointing, she walks down the aisle and out to the schoolyard. Pastor Jackson and the widow follow the young girl. Trina turned to the two adults and questions, with a simple, "See?" Her query causes Pastor Jackson to follow these mysterious footprints. One by one, the footsteps lead past the schoolyard, down the riverbank, only to disappear beneath the waters of the musky river. Standing at the water's edge, the pastor stops and stares, his mind searching for an explanation. He feels a small hand clasp his. Looking down, he finds the hand is that of Kevin's little sister, Trina, who gazes down at the water and then back up at him and once more questions. "Jonah?" The pastor doesn't wish to frighten the young girl. He lifts her up in his arms without answering and merely returns her back to the group of children who stand at the entryway of the schoolhouse. "It was Jonah," the school bully earnestly declares. The bully's words sends the entire class into a flurry of murmuring. The name Jonah is heard over and over as the children speak in low tones and hushed whispers, deliberating among themselves the true nature of the mysterious apparition. The widow Hazel attempts to ease their fear by enunciating, "Why, you children know better than that. Little Jonah's dead and gone. I should know. I was at the funeral. The pastor, he was there when they put that poor child in the ground. He's the one that read over him. Now ain't that right, Pastor Jackson?" The pastor gives no verbal reply. He merely nods his head, all the while eyeing the rapidly drying footprints on the floor. Young Perkins questions the pastor, while keeping his gaze fixed on Mr. Pickman, who stands silently staring in stone-cold horror. "Pastor," the young man remonstrates, "look at those footprints. Look at where they lead, right up to Jonah's old desk. We all heard the sound of him walking." "That's right, Pastor," says Jojo. "That's right, Pastor Jackson. We wouldn't lie to you," says his brother Booker. The pastor then turns to Mr. Pickman. "What do you think?" Pickman gives no reply. His gaze remains fixed on the rapidly drying footprints. It's obvious to all present that their new teacher, Mr. Pickman, is in shock. Pastor Jackson then announces the end of the school day and orders the children to their homes. The children immediately obey, and one by one they shuffle from the room to begin their long journey home. The widow Hazel attempts to rouse Mr. Pickman, only to be halted by the pastor, who deemed it better to leave him there in that suspended state.